game, Aston Villa versus Manchester United, and take a look at the betting currently at matchbook.com. You can back Aston Villa at 3.6, Manchester United 2.18 away from home, and the draw is available at 3.7. Both teams to score yes is 1.75. No is 2.18. And the Asian handicap sees Villa get a quarter of a goal head start here at 2.04. And United to cover that is 1.9. And the total is 2.5 goals, slightly shaded towards the over. So, Mark, we'll head to you on this one. And look, I think this is kind of this game is set up so well, given it's Unai Emery's first game in charge. His last game against Manchester United was that Europa League final. Just for people to understand a lot of what Unai Emery's done in England based on his Arsenal career and a bit on PSG. But with the likes of Villarreal and Seville winning the Europa Leagues, the Villa fans will be asking themselves, how did they do in the league during those seasons? Can you kind of give a bit of background to Unai Emery's career in Spain?
Probably not as well as we'd expect them to do, considering his success on the continent in European competition. He does tend to excel in competitions when he's able to sort of mastermind a tactical approach in one-off situations or two-legged ties. In terms of league form, at least in recent seasons with Villarreal, when they made some quite lavish signings for a club of their stature, there was an expectation that they could kick on, close the gap between themselves and the big three at the top end of the table. And they largely underwhelmed. Probably too many draws, and that's down to his pragmatism and conservatism, you'd have to assume. But, flip it around and say what they did in Europe was, beyond their wildest dreams, really. And I guess from an Aston Villa perspective, what do fans really want? They're not going to challenge Man City for the title. They don't want to be involved in a relegation scrap. If they can, flitter around mid-table, it might not be the most exciting of campaigns, but if he can deliver a success in the Cups and bring Villa back into Europe, then they'll absolutely bite your hand off for that opportunity. So I think we just need to be realistic about our expectations for Unai Emery with Aston Villa. I think fans would absolutely want them to see them pushing towards the top six, or at least for European qualification that way. But if he can sort of navigate a run to a cup final, let alone a trophy, I think that will be semi-successful at least. So, yeah, I mean, I don't tend to be too excited again or get involved in matches where there are new managers in place. There tends to be a bit of randomness about it. The new manager bounce is often a tribute to it too. And Aston Villa have been pretty wild, haven't they, since Gerrard was dismissed? Absolutely wiped the floor of Brentford, and then were totally dismantled by Newcastle too. But Emery's not had a huge amount of time to go in there. But as I say, he is a pragmatic head coach. He's not the kind of guy to release the handbrake if there is one. He will look for a solid and firm foundation to work from to begin with, and he will drill his team to be organised and well prepared. He's very much a believer in detail and knowing the fine lines of what's required, really. So he also loves the underdog role too. So I think Villa can be competitive in this game without knowing a huge amount about how they're going to line up tactically and personnel-wise. But I think they're aided by the fact United are playing Europa League football on Thursday night in a big game against Real Sociedad. I mean, both teams are already qualified, but there's top spot in that group up for grabs, which is a big carrot in the Europa League this season. So I'm assuming they field a relatively strong team in that match, which will give Villa a bit of an advantage at least. So, and yeah, look, I've been impressed by United's kind of incremental progress. They're unbeaten in 5 in the Premier League, alternating between wins and draws. But bar Spurs, they've not really blown teams away, and the majority of their wins have been by narrow margins, especially away from home, has to be said, where I think at times they've been fortuitous in terms of picking up points when they've not performed too well. But I do think the midfield is obviously functioning much better now with Casemiro in there, Eriksen there. The defence is improving week on week. They've shut out Spurs, Newcastle and West Ham in the last 3. They're up against the Villa side who's failed to score in 3 of 4, now being managed by a pragmatist. So my approach would be to oppose goals. I'm surprised that overs is the favourite of the two. So I think that does lend itself to opposing goals at a nice price. You can get evens for under 2.5 goals. You can actually get under 2 3/4 goals at a reasonable price too, which just guards against the likelihood there could be exactly 3 goals. But neither team are sort of hitting overs regularly in the Premier League this season. Only 2 of 6 at Villa Park have gone over, and actually 9 of United's last 12 in the Premier League have gone under as well. So in their last game against Newcastle, they fielded Bailey, Buendia, Watkins, and Ings against Brentford and Newcastle. I can see Emery sort of putting that handbrake straight back on and solidifying that team as well as much as he can ahead of this match.
Yeah, Miguel, I'm fascinated with that Villa story and where they're going to go, because they've had that year under Gerrard. They've gotten this big name manager in Unai Emery. But I guess, as Mark touched on, it's got to be patient, and there will be a bit of pragmatism when it comes to Emery's tactics.
Yeah, that's it. And as Mark touched on at the top of this, I mean, I don't want to describe Emery as a cup manager. He's more than that, but it's certainly true. His approach is better suited to those cup games. Hence, that's where we've seen most of his success, because his league performances haven't been. I mean, they probably haven't actually matched the stature or the profile he's got. Let's see how. I mean, I was going to say that's a potential concern for Villa, but let's see how it develops. He does seem to have full control, or a lot of control, I should say, at the club. But yeah, from that perspective, and also given his own results against Manchester United, actually, not least the last one, it's hard not to see a low-scoring game here. Potentially a clean sheet for at least one of them. Emery, he will set up to contain United. United have been making progress under Ten Hag. It does feel like the defensive structure of the team is right, but at the other end, they still need that firepower, which is why we've seen so many low-scoring games. Yeah, and it does all feed into another low-scoring game here, which is why under 2.5 is quite safe.
Yeah, under 2.5 currently, 2.04 there. Adrian, just a little bit on Manchester United. Bruno Fernandes is obviously suspended here with 5 yellow cards. Where are you with him? Because look, it's been like a lean spell for him in terms of goals and assists. And if he's not contributing that, he's sort of a similar player to Alexis Sanchez. I always found that if he's not scoring goals or assisting goals, then he's kind of sometimes getting in the way of that attack.
Yeah, he's one of the most irritating players to watch, isn't he, in the Premier League?
Yeah.
He's I don't know, not my favourite character, but he's got talent, no doubt about it. But I think they've got the players to cope with his absence in this match. Rashford's in good nick, isn't he? He's playing ever so well. I think he'll be a threat. But no, I agree with the boys. I think that this has absolutely the look of a low-scoring game, especially after what happened to Villa at St James's. That refocuses the mind, doesn't it? It makes you think, right, that can't happen again. So you'll naturally tighten up. You've got Emery, who knows how to keep Manchester United at bay. He's done that with Villarreal. So, yeah, he'll be cautious. United's defence, obviously, they're shorn of Varane at the moment, but 3 clean sheets in 4 isn't bad. But, yeah, I'm looking at some of the other stats. Villa have failed to score in 6 of their 13 matches. That's plenty. And the angle I was going to take was both teams to score no, which sort of Miggs hinted at there. That's a pretty good price as well. It's actually slightly bigger price than under 2.5. So it's the 1-1 that kills you if you go down that route. But yeah, 8 of 13 Villa games, both teams to score no has landed. So that's pretty impressive. And it's happened with half of Manchester United's matches as well. So the odds would suggest that BTTS no might not be the worst shout in the world. So it's just an alternative to under 2.5. But yeah, I think this is, ahead of kickoff, opposing goals feels the right thing to do.
Yeah, as Adrian touched on, 2.18, both teams to score no. We will lock in under 2.5 goals at 2.04, but it is the great debate. Do you go both teams to score no, and you get covered if there's a 2-3-4-0 as well? Or do you lock in the under 2.5? But we'll lock in under 2.5, 2.04, Villa versus Manchester United. And arguably, well, it is the